Good morning, everyone. I am here at the site of Concord's North Bridge, and I'm standing on what was called the Groton Road. It came out from the center of Concord, about a half mile, and then it turned to the left, crossed the North Bridge, and then it continued all the way up the hill, heading to the north and west. And also right about there, where I'm pointing to, there was a branch of the road, a fork in the road, that ran off almost directly to Colonel Barrett's farm, about a mile and a half west. Now, up at the top of the hill, it was all clear, open farmland, so just try to mentally remove those trees. There was a field called the Muster Field, and that is where the Minutemen and the militia companies from the towns of Acton, Concord, Lincoln, and Bedford had gathered on the morning of April 19, 1775, and it was from there the decision was made to march down to the bridge into the town because they thought it was being set on fire. They saw smoke from military supplies being burned, and they marched down in double file down the road towards the bridge. And even some of the British officers said that they marched down in a very military manner, that they were drawn up at the greatest regularity. One officer said that they, marched down into the road with as much order as the best disciplined troops. So it must have been an impressive sight to see this long column of, over 400 militiamen, not like a country rabble, but as soldiers, marching down this road. Now, the British, not being foolish, they were originally standing where about the Minuteman Statue is, 3 companies, about 96 men. So they're outnumbered 4-1 with their backs to a river. So they retreated to the opposite shore. So that's going to be putting the bridge between themselves and the enemy, forcing the enemy, the colonists, to cross over the bridge, and the British could then concentrate their fire. So it's a very strong position that they're in. But just imagine, the Minutemen marching down. The Acton Minute Company under the command of Captain Isaac Davis was in front, marching along this road towards the bridge, and seeing the British get ready to receive them, and knowing that your orders were to let them fire first before you can respond. That's really just difficult orders to follow, but by all accounts they did. So speaking of accounts, I'm going to read to you as we walk the account of Corporal Amos Barrett, who served in Captain David Brown's Minuteman Company from Concord. And just a quick, Captain David Brown's house is actually just right over there, just in front of where you see that house standing right now. In fact, we've marked it with some granite slabs just on the rising ground. You can see the truck just passed by where those slabs are. So that's where Captain David Brown lived. He was actually responsible to the town for maintaining this road and causeway, because you can see you have the river on the right over here. You've got a meadow, very wet on the left, which conditions would have been similar in April. And actually running along the northern edge of the road here, there would have been a low stone wall topped with a wooden handrail. And a direct approach to the bridge. So that's what they were looking at. They're basically hemmed in on a raised causeway with a river on the right, a meadow on the left, and a stone wall, marching in double file down to the bridge. So let's hear from Corporal Amos Barrett. When we were on the hill, there was about 80 or 90 British came to the bridge and there made a halt. After a while, they begun to tear the plank of the bridge. Major Buttrick said if we were all of his mind, we would drive them away from the bridge. They should not tear that up. We all said we would go. We then weren't loaded and were all ordered to load, and had strict orders not to fire unless they fired first, then to fire as fast as we could. Captain Davis had got, I believe, within 16 rods of the British when they fired 3 guns, one right after another. I see the balls strike in the river on the right of me. Soon as they fired them, they fired on us. Their balls whistled well. We then was all ordered to fire and not kill our own men. It is strange that there weren't more killed, but they fired too high. Captain Davis was killed and Mr. Hosmer, and a number wounded. So 16 rods of the British. So if you figure the British are across the river where the obelisk is, a rod is 16.5 feet. So they were probably first taking fire right around in this area here. And it was somewhere in this area that Captain Davis of Acton was killed. Veterans of the company remembered him taking his post at the head of the company and drawing his sword and saying, "I haven't a man who's afraid to go." Just a total commitment to that moment and to his duty as an officer. And he marched down, and for him, of course, and for Abner Hosmer, another man in the Acton Minute Company, that proved to be a one-way ticket. They never left this place as living men. The landscape we're looking at now is very much a commemorative landscape. We have, of course, the famous Minuteman Statue that was done by the sculptor Daniel Chester French, who later went on to do the seated Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So that was dedicated on April 19th of 1875, the centennial. And inscribed on the base is the first stanza of the Concord Hymn, written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. "By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmer stood and fired the shot heard round the world."